No, it's still counts. It's about the size of a prairie dog. And I'm just trying to go over here. There's probably a cute gymnast right there. But they can chase him away. And actually, most people like this. That's the Saharian. I guess that's and there's crayfish down here. And there's a picture of them swimming with big claws. That's only when I was pretty good.
Party going, everybody.
All right, so we're going to call to order this meeting of PROSTAC, June 21st, 2017. Naria is absent. I haven't heard from Corbett and George, so hopefully they will show up shortly. So we're going to open it up for public comment. We have a member of the public here, so go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Carty-Mullen. I live at 1250 South Boyero Court, Superior. And I'm here to deliver a message for Susan Bauer, who you may know, as well as for myself. So first of all, we both want to thank you for your advocacy in helping to restore the Hodgkin-Harris Reservoir. And as a result, it really is become a thriving ecosystem. This spring has been knockout, and I have some pictures and documentation, and Susan has some notes about that. So thank you. Susan says, earlier this year, and she couldn't be here because she had a bike accident, and so she wanted to come. And she just got out of the hospital. I was like, you better just kind of, it's okay. I'll give you the message. So she said she just wanted to just let you know that she's been working with Boulder County Audubon to evaluate what songbirds and aquatic wildlife exist on and around Hodgkin-Harris. So Boulder County Audubon suggested that she do a bird breeding study with a group of people, which I'm one of, and there's 9 of us all together. And so that started in May, and it's going through this month. And what we do is just basically go out and log everything that we see, not only birds, but mammals, reptiles. I mean, we have some snakes and a mink, So it's been pretty successful. So, since we've been observing it, she says, it's been a thriving ecosystem and wildlife habitat. For example, in May, there were, I don't know if you realize this, but Boulder County has some avocets. They're trying to bring them back in. They're not exactly highly populated. So we had 4 avocet nests. So we had 8 avocets out there. And we had 2 pie-billed grebes nesting on the reservoir. Well, when that snowstorm came in May, the water rose, and it slowly wiped out all of the nests, one by one. The avocets disappeared. I haven't seen any, but there have been spottings this week where there's 1 or 2 back, so that's nice. The grebes, after their nest, which floats in the water, they cried for like 2 weeks, looking and swimming around for their nest. I mean, they were just persistent as can be. And this morning, it was so rewarding. I looked out there with my binoculars, and I'm like, there's the nest. There's a mama grebe on there. And a fellow neighbor who's the photographer of some of these pictures, Jerome, he said, let me see if I can get, he got a picture, and there's an egg in the nest. So that's so cool. So anyhow, Susan just wants you to know that that it's evolving, and she wants to do an educational program this fall as well. And she'll have the data from this study in August to present. So she's been reaching out to partners like Boulder County Audubon and Prairie Dog Coalition, and you name it, she's been doing it. It's great. So, and as you can tell, I'm an excited member of her team, and I've lived across the street from Zaharias for 24 years and have watched prairie dogs come and go, hawks come and go. I've never seen a mink out there. It was amazing. So last week, John and I, my husband and I, were walking for the bird study, and we saw this thing swimming through the water. I'm like, that's not a muskrat. That's bigger than, what is that? And it beached, and it was, it was like, that a weasel? What is it? So we did a little research, sent pictures out, and found out from different experts that it was a mink. And so this is what Steve Jones from the Boulder County Audubon, who's heading up the bird breeding study, said. This is great news for your documentation of wildlife use of the area. Mink are large native ferrets, and in this case, they're replacing the black-footed ferrets in the ecosystem. I don't know how much they preyed on the prairie dogs historically. They probably stuck most to streams, areas, and wetlands, but they are native to Boulder County and have been making a significant comeback during the past decade. Steve. So that's cool. And Susan Spalding, who's the senior wildlife biologist at Boulder County, she confirmed it. She goes, unmistakable indeed. Mink it is. So she's excited, and they want me to talk to some other expert out there that knows all about mink. So I'll do that. Yeah, that's because I'm excited about it. So I wanted to share the video, photos with you, and also to let you know, when we first went, we saw him beach, and then he ran up into the prairie dog community, which is all Zaharias, and the prairie dogs were going nuts. Down the hole, up, looking around like a periscope, coming out with a pup, and they just snap their neck. And then they eat them. And then they running back down to the shore and swimming it across, and in one of the pictures you'll see it, down into the den. And apparently they kick out the muskrats. They can kill them or kick them out. Well, they kicked them out, and these two muskrats that are there are really precocious because they swim around with it and they think that they're in charge, and the mink's like, forget it. They doesn't pay any attention to them, and they're like, pretending that they're chasing them away. So anyhow, we have a gem here, and I hope we can find a way to preserve the amazing wildlife in this joint thriving ecosystem. So if you can show the pictures, that'd be great. Maybe we could shut the lights off? Or that light? Yeah, there you go. There it is on top of the prairie dog hole. There it is. See, this is a prairie dog that it's carrying. It's lighter in the face, and that's it going back, I guess. So you just have 4? Okay. We have one, a recent one that it's swimming with a huge, looks like a crab, it's a big crayfish as well. So thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. I know your hearts are in nature. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Yep. Thanks for showing the pictures.
Did you have any public comment that you wanted to make? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right?
Passion. I didn't know there was even that minks were predators. So it's very interesting.
But did you have any public comment for, I assume, skate park?
Yes.
You
This
look
is
like
my
you
son
might
Matthew.
say skate parks.
My name is, here, I'll come to the, okay. Are we the first people to come and talk about the skate park?
No. Go ahead.
Well, we were here at 6 for our skate park meeting, and this is our regular meeting. But you're welcome
I was looking
this
at
is
the
just
agenda,
our-
and it looked like you were in a closed meeting at 6.
No, so this is just our general public comment. So you're welcome to make your comments, feedback.
Well, this is my son Matthew. He's an avid scooterer, and he's been patiently awaiting the arrival of the repair on the what's it called?
Half pipe.
On the half pipe.
Yep.
And he has he'd like some information on when he can expect that to be ready, and also has some suggestions on what should be added to the skate park if you're considering different options. So, go ahead.
Oh my God.
So to answer the question, the town has hired someone to repair the half pipe, so it'll be sometime during the summer. I just don't have an actual timeline for you, unfortunately. But they are looking to repair it for this year. But we'd love to hear your feedback on other features you'd like to see.
All right.
Matthew, what grade are you in?
Fourth.
Fourth grade. Going into fourth or going into fifth?
Going into the fifth.
Going into fifth. What school are you at?
El Dorado.
Do you know Brett Cunningham?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my son. And he uses that skate park probably just as much as you do. So does his older brother Levi. Very willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah. Thank you. What?
So go ahead, explain what you think that they should add. You rattled off a number of ideas, and I have no idea what they are because they're all Greek to me.
I can tell you one. Ian was here earlier, as you guys know Ian, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ian said he wanted a resi that we all had to look up and figure out what a resi is. Do you know what a resi is?
Yeah.
So what other things go along with a resi?
What?
What other things are fun elements that you use in a skate park?
Bowls, spines, and hips.
Bowls, spines, and hips. Okay. And what
Spines
else?
Spines are what you grind on, bowls, inset, and hips.
Hips are like, kind of like, it's kind of hard to explain. It's like a platform and it's like curved so you can like clear it. Yeah, that's fun.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Would you
you
like
sure?
to send them? Would you like to send them some pictures of what you'd like with more description in their email?
Sure.
We've got a survey that you can do too, if you have some feedback that you can go that route.
I will. I'll fill it out.
Yeah.
Say it.
What?
Put it on the record. You're going to fill it out and say thank you.
Okay. We're going to fill it out. Thank you. Why? You said to say
One more
that.
survey.
You said to say that.
Just this survey,
Tell
and
your
here's
friends to
some,
fill it out,
we just
too.
had some quick examples of like
When you're
different.
filling it out, try to think about the area that's actually there and what you could put in that area, the space that you actually have there, what you could kind of put, or if you think it's in a different space, put that maybe you want to go to a different space. The more information you can put, the more it helps us, okay?
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Sorry about the
No, that's all good.
That's cool.
6-7. But I
Just
I got
glad
to
you
learn
showed
about
up.
the main-
That's
What?
right.
Just glad you showed up and gave your comments.
I didn't know we had water in this. Like I saw that thing swimming. I was like, where is that? I've never seen water.
So that's the reservoir that's on 88th,
88th and
right before you cross over to Louisville.
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That's really cool. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you again. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so a couple more comments on the skate park, so that's great. So let's move on to the first discussion item, continuation of the 2018 budget. So right now, we're starting to look at the skate park, and so Patrick has penciled in, I think, $300,000 for that being a potential budget item request. Right now, it's so preliminary. I mean, we'll have to go through a design process with the company, American Ram company, that's been hired for the design and get a budget off of that. But hopefully we'll have something potentially by next month, a little bit more solidified on the skate park. He's also put in $100,000 for consultants for the rec center process. So we need to discuss, I mean, we have it on the next agenda item, talk about the rec center, but if it seems like we're in agreement to move forward with some type of recommendation on the rec center, the logical next step is, doing the work on it for next year, which will almost certainly require some professional assistance in the process. So aside from that, we had the playground project. So the embankment slide at Purple Park, the board wants to see a presentation on that. And we're not going to...
At Pirate Park.
Pirate Park, yeah, the embankment slide at Pirate Park. The board wants to see a presentation on it. Staff already has that out of the design process that was done last year. The only little hiccup here is that we're not on the board agenda until like August 14th for that presentation. So we kind of need to decide now do we want to wait and see if they're going to approve it for this year? Like they'll find the money to fund it this year? Or do we want to make it as a budget recommendation for next year? We can have a discussion on that because I can explain a little bit my thought on that. But that's what we've talked about for budget items for next year. So, you know, we can open it up. Does anyone else have any other budget items that we haven't talked about that we should be considering for next year?
So I have a question then, from an overall budget standpoint and how the board or how we're recommending things, because we put forth trail recommendations like 2 years ago, right, that aren't going to be built yet. And
Well,
then we have the park improvements.
Right.
So I'm just,
So the trails, the recommendation from
expedited.
2016 was essentially expedited design
Okay.
of the trails. And that's where it sits. Those trails have preliminary designs, rough budget estimates on them, but neither OSAC nor PROSTAC has made a recommendation to the board to actually construct any of those trails other than Trail F, which was constructed, which was the short little concrete connector along Colton. And then when we made a recommendation for the Pirate Park embankment slide, we included the Trail G, which was the Pirate Park connector into Coyote Ridge. So that will be part of the presentation that the board sees in August is Trail G. But the other trails, basically the one along McCaslin, from Indiana north to Calmonte, the connector in the fire station park, and then the potential connector from that trail through the Greenway to El Dorado. Those ones, if we want to make a recommendation that they be built, that would be the time. Now would be the time to discuss
I just wanted
it.
clarification, so we are still, with the Pirate Park embankment slide, there's still the trail associated to it is going in as a recommendation. So the rest are still just, they've been designed, but no recommendation to build.
No recommendation to build at this point, correct. So the embankment slide at Pirate Park and the trail, my thought is we'd play more of a wait and see, because the hope would be that they fund it this year and therefore we don't have to worry about it as a budget item next year. Because if we go forward with a budget item on Pirate Park and the skate park and the rec center, you can almost be guaranteed that 2 out of those 3 are going to basically be turned away. It's just, there's not enough money to go around, really. I mean, we could recommend all of them and let the board, the board will have to decide what they want to do. But I would say we should stress that we want the Pirate Park embankment slide and that trail connector built this year, so it's done, and then we can worry about these 2 bigger items, the skate park and the rec center, for next year.
So I'll go ahead and speak up. I agree. I think that, I would like to know what the, especially since we've already kind of brought up the idea of the embankment slide during the dinner we had with them and said why we didn't do it before. And they told us, well, don't let that stop you, that we thought we had $35K for it. I would rather know their thoughts on that now and then push that one off to next year. And if they decide no, well, then what do we do in the difference? And for the skate park, I think the skate park is premature right now to recommend a budget because we're still collecting all the data.
Right.
Where we have the design for this, even though we may have to wait till August, at least we have something ready to go that we can present to them that's a more mature design and budget for this. And if they say no, then we know not to do it for next year. unless they recommend we can't do it this year and we would like to see this next year, we can at least understand where we are with that better if we just do the Pirate Park.
Right. The way I would see it is if we go in there on August 14th, give the presentation to the board on Pirate Park, they say, we like it, but it can't happen this year, then we could pretty much turn right around and say, well, then we would like to now state that this is a budget item request for 2018. But I don't really want to make that statement until we get a no, we won't do it this year.
Right.
Like this year would be the priority I see for that for this project. And then, right, the skate park is too premature to make a recommendation. We won't do that yet. It'll be next month at the earliest. But we're trying to get our ducks in a row to have the information, even a design concept for the skate park. And then we'll talk about the rec center next.
Well, and the rec center obviously is not going to happen this year.
Right.
Put it into the budget.
Right,
So
exactly.
The earliest we could get it into the budget, if we could, would be next year. Because it's
Right.
just too much for this year.
Well-
So if we want something to happen, then to me the skate park is the thing that we could probably make happen, the best chance.
See, and I have a different opinion too, in the fact that I think that the Pirate Park embankment slides, it's fully there. We've been pushing on it. I think it's something that we want to try and propose this year. But the skate park also, I think that depending on the size of the skate park, you could potentially say that it could go together with the rec center and be all at the same area and have a very large skate park tied to the rec center. But that would change what would you do with the not so great skate park that we currently have at the South Pool. But those are things that I think we could weigh in the overall big picture of planning of the entire neighborhood.
But would you, I guess, and maybe I confused some things, would you say that you'd be recommending the rec center and skate park for the budget this year?
No,
Okay.
no.
That's
At the Pirate Park would be this year because it's resolved.
Then I think we have the same idea.
direction.
I may have said
So
skate
it's
park
the same
earlier.
thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I'm thinking that, like you said, we haven't resolved the skate park and the rec center. But to me also, it's a question of if we propose the rec center and if the rec center moves forward and you use Richmond 15, just, it's a middle of the town. And if you utilize that, is there another amenity, an outdoor amenity that ties to that site? That could be a skate park, tennis, there's a lot of other things that could tie into that site for outdoor recreation and that it's kind of that community park to the basketball courts, to the trailhead. It's that kind of recreation corridor. So anyway, there's a lot of things there from a master planning standpoint that I think are aligned. If you could build the
But that's exactly it, though. That it's a master plan discussion for that property. So it's almost a secondary discussion to, first the board needs to say, yes, we're interested in building a rec center, and
Right.
yes, we're interested in building on that property.
Yeah.
right.
It's not until that is answered would we start saying, well, are you going to consider other, outdoor amenities on that property aside from the rec center, because here are our ideas.
But, and that's where I think we have to have that overall vision that I think has to be brought up. But I agree that for right now, for the funding that is potentially available and could be done, Pirate Park is probably priority one, but I think the skate park renewal or renovation would be number two, because I don't think it's, even with the size of the property that is there, you don't have enough real estate to do a very large skate
No,
park.
it's still going to be
It's still going to be a small neighborhood kind of community thing, but it's still a specialty piece within the town of Superior that a lot of kids are using.
And you're using right now, the scooter phase is so big that, like what you're saying, they're using, every one of them, even, they're all scootering and they're all using it right now.
Right.
I can't, it's just mind blowing how big it got recently.
Yeah.
To answer your original question, Peter, you threw out there, we do need to prioritize it and not just throw all three at them and say, let you guys decide. That's just the procedural. It doesn't matter how we go, we can talk about it, but I think we should at least agree that we should be doing this as our priority. They can do whatever they want at the end of the day, but I think we should emphasize exactly, probably the 2 points you guys just made.
So what would we say our priority is then for next year? If we take the pirate park and say we're going to push for that next year, if we would our priority?
Well, it depends on August 14th, depends on the meeting. If they nix it, then we have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we want next. But I think right now, I think we're pretty much in agreement that it's on the docket. Let's see if we can get it done.
Right.
Let's push it through. If they say no, exactly what you just said. If they say no, then we now know that they're not a big fan of it, and maybe we should be emphasizing the skate park as more resources. So, our resources towards the skate park. So, but as far as sending them something right now, I'm not sure if we need to. What exactly you want to?
We don't need to send them anything right now. It's just a continuation of discussion to see if we have any changes. But I mean, basically what this is doing is it's narrowing it down. So if we, fourth, I guess, thing would be, if the Pirate Park is approved to be done this year, do we have another playground project that we want to recommend for next year? The $35,000 that we thought we had is not in the budget at this point. So it would be basically a capital fund.
Right, based on
request.
last month, we basically came out, so we're applying for the general fund almost to a certain extent.
Or the general fund.
Yeah, is there any money out there for any of these projects? And there may not be. I don't think anybody in this room knows. So maybe Sandy does. But
that would be another question: is do we have another playground project in mind beyond Pirate Park?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the trails, I think we've narrowed it down to the 3 top things. Maybe somebody else has something they want to add to the list, but I mean, obviously we're not going to get a baseball field. Obviously we're not going to get a football field. So let's just deal with reality that.
Well, football field is in the plans for Park 2,
Right.
Town Center.
Yeah.
I think
we wouldn't have to put on our, let's find a home for it.
I mean, I guess, to me, it comes down to the priority amenities list that we continue to fill out, and these are the top things, and I think we just have to work our way through them to figure out how to get it as a budget item to actually get achieved. Otherwise, it'll just be on the priority list.
Right.
And we're not achieving it.
I think Naria, based on the conversation in the last meeting with the tennis courts.
A couple meetings ago, yeah.
She's not here, so
Right.
for her.
And so that's on the amenities priority list. It's a little bit further down the list. But as Corey has said, if we start talking about more of a master plan idea for the Richmond 15 property, tennis courts is probably one, because if you're going to build the rec center, you probably aren't going to have enough land to do like another baseball field. So you start thinking about other amenities. Skate park and tennis courts are probably the next 2 on the list that we definitely would see as a need.
To bring this back to the original question, and again, to try to tie this all together, we've talked about a lot of these amenities, and the one, again, I guess I'm trying to re-advocate the Pirate Park for this year, because that's the one standout that really doesn't tie into the master plan for the...
Thanks, Matthew.
The master plan that could be with this rec center. A tennis course could tie into it, a skate park could tie into it, a lot of these things, but the embankment slide would never tie into it in that location. It's always going to be its own standalone thing.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, I think
Okay.
let's see what the board wants to do with it. If they say no in August, then we got to really rethink if it's just not something that they're willing to spend money on. So.
Yeah,
And I think going forward too, I mean, the whole changing of Lakeshore, what's going on there, again, just like when Town Center came up, the dynamics are changing continually.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if Lifetime does what they say they're going to do with Lakeshore,
They're pretty much going to buy it.
they bought it July 1st.
They did buy it. They're
Yeah.
buying it July 1st. It's
July
going to be a platinum.
1st.
It's going to be a platinum
Right.
Lifetime, not a gold, a platinum. So
Right.
the prices are actually going to probably increase.
Well, they're going to go up, but it's not going to be the high, well, I don't know. We'll see what they do, because they're also spending a lot of money on it to fix it. So again,
Yeah, it's going to close down for 3 months.
yeah, that's what we heard, 2 months. Yeah, late
in the
summer,
year.
yeah. into the winter. So again, but that right there changes the whole equation on a rec center here. So, you know, I mean, so I think.
But does that actually add requirement or add interest to have a rec center?
I think
Or
it takes.
less?
I think it'll take away.
See, I would actually go the other way.
I would go
If
the other
it's
way.
gonna
The prices are
Depends
gonna
on the
go
price.
up.
It depends on the
More
price.
Yeah, I
options.
mean, Lakeshore is already a financial obstacle for a large percentage of Superior residents.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to know that lifetime is only going to increase,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that it actually just creates more of, you know, a need for a lower cost option.
But not just the
in the
lower
town.
cost option, but the whole thing with the Lifetime is Lakeshore, you're only members of Lakeshore.
Right.
You're not
Lifetime,
members
you're-
of every Lakeshore, you're only members of Lakeshore,
Right.
right? Lifetime, you're members of all the Lifetime, which means that not only costs go up, but the potential for how crowded it is goes up as well.
Yeah.
Because you have other members who can come from the Erie Lake, Lifetime, or whatever other ones to come here for whatever amenity may be here,
Right.
which would, again, reinforce what Peter, this is my opinion, that people are like, I want something different.
All right, so we'll continue to work on the skate park process as a budget item, and we'll see what the board says about Pirate Park in August. And, you know, that's where we are with the budget. So to move on to the,
One other thing, Pete, can we make sure we have something for the skate park at July 4th? Kind of brought it up with Sandy. Can we make sure we have something? I don't know what we can do, but is there something we can do to emphasize the fact that we've had some interest in this? Obviously.
we'll at
Okay.
least have what we have tonight, which is the
Right.
survey and maybe some, you know, photo examples of
Because we
features.
don't have another meeting before, so.
We don't have another meeting before.
But I think we also have, I mean, you know, would we be willing to, or able to tell folks that we're, you know, we wouldn't be in this year's budget because there's not enough maturity in the design. We're doing the survey to see, you know, what it would be, and it would be no sooner if it happened than next year's budget. We could say things like that, right?
Well, and
Right.
we're fixing the half pipe, right? Like this summer.
Yeah.
So like
Well,
That's a
and
key thing.
that's a thing to say.
That's one thing we can say. It's actually the Kuffners that are the ones that have been hired to repair it. And
That's why George is not
I don't know why.
He's out
George
there
is
fixing
not
it.
here.
Right now.
But apparently,
He's up a half pipe from one of the old.
apparently they have the equipment to drill through the steel. Or they purchased it, like the special drill or whatever. It's going to allow them to drill through the steel, and they say they can fix it. So I just don't know the timeline on it, but they have.
expected to be this.
Yeah, working on getting it repaired
Yeah.
sometime in the future.
So just to clarify though, I heard we have number 1 is the Pirate Park, 2 and 3 are kind of, 2 is the skate park, 3 is more the rec center because it's going to take longer time, and that's coming up here. From everyone, I mean, how does the expedited trails that are still outstanding kind of fit into those? Because I think those are our top 4. It's just a matter of what order, other than Pirate Park. Pirate Park, I think if we can get that through this year, that'd be great.
Well, I think the order is constantly being affected by what do we think the board's going to go for? Like, what are we? I mean, it seems like it's not like they're equal costs, right? They're not. They're not anywhere
Right.
close.
The magnitude of the
Yeah.
rec center is gigantic compared with the other projects. So.
Right, but I heard even the trails were like 800,000, and the skate park would be like 300. So you still have pretty substantial.
Well, yeah, so the difference between those projects is all funding. So the rec center would only really happen if it passes a ballot initiative.
Right.
So it would be taxpayer
Yeah.
funded. The skate park, that would be a general fund request.
Right.
The trails would be open space fund, most
Okay.
likely. And the question right there is, what is going to be the availability open space fund dollars, and also is OSAC going to be behind spending them on trails? Because right now OSAC is recommending that the town purchase the Zaharias property. We can talk about this a little bit later.
Sorry.
Because it wasn't on the agenda. But, and then the board is looking at whether or not open space fund can be spent at least partially on the construction of parks 1 and 2 in town center. So you start looking at, well, if the board is going to spend open space fund on any of those items, what's left for trails?
Right.
So they all have, each one has a separate,
There's a little
funding
separate,
source
yeah.
and a question next to that.
Okay.
So,
And then just to kind of close the loop of what you're saying about the skate park is that I think right now, the skate park is number 2, but we also have this question about master plan. I think once we really get the results of the survey, we might know better of whether people are really interested in just one amenity or know a larger type thing that doesn't fit, what would only fit like in a master plan type rec center, which may change our priorities again of the skate park.
right.
Right? I mean, right now the assumption is that it's some kind of add-on to it, but we may know more shortly.
And yeah, that sounds great. The only other thing I was going to point out was, for me, the trails also become an issue because just from understanding, where the trails are and what the need is and those kind of things along McCaslin, trying to fill that corridor of what the homes that have been out there for 10, 15 years compared to some of the new development over here that's still taking place and a lot of construction's going on. There's still a couple of years of, development to be done before they really become, heavily utilized. So that's where, there's that kind of, to make sure it kind of all comes together.
So Peter, a question that came to mind though is, you're talking about the trails with open space fund and that OSAC may have other ideas for that. Don't we have a yearly or potentially more than yearly meeting with OSAC where the president and vice president sit down? And if that's on your agenda, are you guys planning on talking about these things and kind of coming to some kind of agreement of, well, what is the plan, and let's maybe, horse trade or work some kind of deal out of, for the open space funds.
Right. So we finalized our 5-year trails plan, I think, back in April. OSAC still has not finalized theirs. They probably won't finalize it till next month. So once they finalize theirs, we'll sit down, the leadership of the 2 committees will sit down and discuss the 5-year trails plan, working on a combined recommendation for a 5-year trails plan. At that time, it would certainly be a good place to discuss with them whether or not they still have any interest in recommending the quote expedited trails for construction. So because the one thing will be to see on the combined 5-year trails plan list how those remaining trails
they all stack up.
end up on the list of priority. And if they are at or near the top of the list, it certainly would beg the question, well, we should be making a recommendation, both committees should be making a recommendation for them to be constructed then. So we'll have that discussion.
Okay.
But it probably will be at least a month before we actually get to sit down. They've taken way longer on this 5-year trails plan than we have. So I wouldn't expect that we'll see it until August probably, a 5-year trails plan to recommend to the board. All right, so let's move on to the recreation center discussion. So, if you're not all aware, the Lakeshore option is dead. As Ron and Corbett both said, it's being purchased by Lifetime Fitness. That raises its own set of questions. So, I took a crack again at a prepared recommendation just because there's so much information in it. So again, this is just a kind of starting point for discussion, as well as whether we want to make a recommendation tonight. But the one thing, I mean, we were essentially ready to make a recommendation at the April meeting.
Yeah.
Before and then the Lakeshore discussion came up and we kind of tabled it. The one thing that we were going to wait on was the cost estimates. So the list that I think it was in March, we had listed the amenities that we wanted to see in a rec center if it were to be built in Superior. Barker Rinker CCAT was the architecture firm that we consulted with. It was in 2013 or 2014. They had provided us a list of approximately how many square feet each amenity would consume and the estimated cost. So based on that, based on the list of amenities we came up with in March, and based on BRS's numbers from 4 years ago, that was going to be a 66,000 square foot building with an estimated cost of $20 million. The one thing that we were kind of wavering on whether or not we wanted for a recommendation to the board was updated pricing from BRS. Staff is going to be working with BRS, I believe, to get that updated. I just don't know when. So the question would be, do we want to move forward with a recommendation based on old pricing or wait for the new pricing, knowing that it might still be another month or more before we get the new pricing? The one thing I will add to that is, I don't know if anyone else saw, but the town of Johnstown is they're building a rec center, and they've entered into an agreement with the YMCA at Boulder Valley to manage it. Now, in that article, what they basically disclosed was a rough size of the facility and how much it was going to cost and some of the amenities. It sounds like they're building something very similar to what we, in size to what we're looking to build. And based on the pricing that they were listing in that article, when I kind of plugged it in, the 66,000 square foot building would probably be somewhere between 21 and 27 million. So obviously it would be increased from 3-4 years ago, the 20 million. So that's the question. Do we want to proceed with old pricing or not?
I just want to say one thing. Wasn't there a question about whether we might still be able to get it on the ballot for this November if we got things? That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, no.
Okay, so I just wondered if that was still a consideration.
It would pretty much have to be written by now if it was going to get on the ballot. So this is, if we make a recommendation, it's basically going to be a recommendation to the board that we would like to see this as soon as possible, knowing that the earliest would be a ballot question next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think my personal thing, and I kind of do this a lot, so, to give a little background, when we were building our vehicle, and a lot of the budget was based on 2014 dollars, and we project that forward based on the cost of doing business 2 years later, and there's estimates to be able to assume how much that cost is over the few years, right? Which puts it probably closer to 22, 23. If you just take this number and you apply those estimates, I think that's, from what we're going to get from them, that it's, it's going to be one of these type things. I think that's just as good personally, and we can do that fairly quickly.
But if it's only a month, is it only going to be a month before we have actual numbers?
Well, but it's also cost, right? I mean, do they do it for free or?
No, it's gonna, and that's what I wish Patrick was here because he could answer this question definitively. I'm now spacing on whether Patrick said he has already entered into a consulting agreement. Do you know, Allison, with BRS? Or he was just gonna look into it. But yeah, he's gonna have to pay BRS something to update the price, and they're not going to do it for free.
They do a programming effort to verify what the program is and then take $1 per square foot to give you the rough number, and they're going to use their historical data to tell you what that number is. So in just saying escalation is like 4%, it's gonna be 23 million.
Right.
23.3.
Which corroborates with what you saw in that article.
Yeah,
23.4.
and that, yeah, like I said, if you ran it on the low end, it was like 21, on the high end was 27.
Which 23.4.
Be conservative, let's
estimation of
say.
4% is like right in the middle.
Yeah,
Right.
let's say, you could be conservative, say 24, 25.
Well, I mean, so, and it's all gonna vary depending on the amenities and how you put it all together and other
Right.
things. So, that's where you're gonna start, and then your number is gonna vary from there. And you can bring the number up and down based on finishes and things.
But the,
Cut out a few square feet.
I mean, I guess really the point is, does the recommendation really change that much if we put it forward saying 20 million versus 24? I mean, we, like I wrote in here, we're referencing that this is 4 years old, it's 2013. So the board should be able to read into that, well, it's going to cost a little bit more than 20 million.
Yeah.
We don't want to assume without actual data whether that 20 million is going to be 23, 24, or 25.
I mean, until the board buys off that we're gonna do a design and actually have a construction documentation and a firm budget, or that it's just gonna go to the town and then there's gonna be a range, and we're gonna have to figure that out with an approval. I mean, I don't think you can get a fine-tuned number without going through a year-long process.
Well, right. I mean, until you basically have construction
Designed it,
drawings,
yeah.
you're going to be dealing with a range anyway.
Yeah.
Even the 20 million is still approximate.
Right.
Well, it's
Right,
just,
there's no
but
guarantee.
I mean, to me, there's a big difference between 20 million and 24, 25 million. I mean, because we're talking about that we can't get them to approve we can't get them to approve a skate park at this point, right? And that's 300,000. So I mean, or the trails, which is 800,000. So I mean, it just seems like that's an awfully big swing. And yes, they should be able to infer that these are old numbers and look at what's happening in Johnstown and all that. But I haven't been on this that long, but it seems like when you go to the board, they want the most up-to-date information that they can get. So
The one difference here is that, like with the skate park, we're asking, will you give us $300,000 cash?
right, as
Here,
opposed to a ballot
we're basically
measure.
saying, will you put forward a tax
Mhm.
to pay for this? And so the tax is gonna be whatever it is to cover the actual amount. So it's gonna be 20, 24, whatever.
Right.
So the bigger question there is, if they're going to say, yes, we're comfortable moving forward with a ballot initiative for 20 million, are they going to all say, if it's going to be 25, are they going to say, oh, no, never mind, we changed our mind? I mean, it is really going to come down to, are they going to want to move forward with anything or nothing at all?
Because you can finesse your building size to come in at your 20 million.
Sure.
But you're also approving a capital investment plus the O&M that you're going to have a yearly recurring fee or
Right.
cost
Mhm.
that's going to be associated to that.
I think it's safe to say that this was estimated $20 million in 2014 dollars. I mean, just flat out say that.
Well, that's what it says.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it says it right there.
I mean, that's a true statement.
Thank you.
That's something that we know that's
Yeah.
a true statement, that it was estimated back then, and let them do the assumptions in their head of, it's going to be somewhere probably a little bit north of that, but not extremely north of that, because you don't want to scare them off, right? You don't want to say this is $50 million and scare them
Yeah.
off.
I mean, I think this proposal is great. It's just that, I don't know, they have seemed to have said no a lot of times. And I haven't been here for all those times, but so I just want to try to give it the best shot that we can do it. And if this is the best shot, that's great, and I will trust your judgment of those of you that have been here
Actually,
longer.
the problem is they haven't definitively said yes or no.
That's it.
That's the problem.
Right.
Is we've continued to be in this state of limbo
Yeah.
on the question.
I
And then-
hate limbo.
It's literally, bring me another rock.
Yeah,
Bring me
which
another
is
rock.
why,
Yeah.
I like that rock.
which
Bring
is
me another rock.
which is
Yeah.
why I think we do need to be as detailed as possible in putting forward a recommendation.
Well, this is pretty detailed to me.
Why do we need to put a dollar figure in, just out of curiosity?
because they're going to ask that question.
I understand that. But generally, our job is to say, we know the town wants this, this is what we want in it. You guys need to figure out how much it's gonna cost and if we can afford it. And that would not be our.
It's supplemental information because we happen to.
I'm not saying we should
Yeah,
put it in,
exactly.
I'm being devil's
Yeah.
advocate here. Why
Yeah.
are we putting the money number in there?
I
We
would
can
say
just
that-
Because they're
we
going to
have
want
it.
it.
Because we have it.
Yeah, because they have.
Because we
yeah.
have the information.
Yeah.
If we didn't have it, I wouldn't say that, well, we have to go get it because we have it. So that answers your first question. Do we need them to pay for somebody to update it? I would say no, because we
Well-
wouldn't, like Ron was saying, it's not something we have to provide, but we already have this data and we can reference it to a specific
Yeah.
year that wasn't that long ago. We can
Right.
include it as supplemental.
It's a reasonable figure as an inference.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate for you one more time. So they're gonna look at this and say, your review and
Your-
survey was done in 2014 and things have changed in 3 years.
Yep.
Those
Well-
numbers don't apply.
Well, right,
I totally
and-
agree that I think this is still the way the community is because
Yeah.
in the last 15 years, we've always had multiple discussions about rec centers and they've always been pushed off.
For one reason or another.
And
Right.
there was already one new
There was
board
one
member
member.
that when we had our dinner suggested they wanted to see another survey. I mean, so all we can do again is reference what we have, which is the 2014 survey. The
Right.
board's going to have to decide whether or not they want to scrutinize that there's been a change in public opinion
When-
since then, and they would like to see another survey. I mean, you ask me, I would say, no, what is that really going to tell you? I mean, you're probably splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah,
So the
the
problem-
survey is the vote.
The general information.
Right.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's the survey.
So
I mean-
that's where, personally, I feel this town is at a point where this question is only going to be answered by a vote of the people.
Yeah.
The problem
Agreed.
with surveys is that you get a snapshot at that particular point in time.
Right.
And if I were to ask the same survey a month later, 3 months later, 4 months later, the results would be slightly skewed.
Well,
If I asked it
right.
a year again, it'd be skewed again.
Yeah,
So
and if you
just have
if you
to-
survey 700 people like we did, and then
Yeah.
6
Vote.
months later you say, okay, that 700 people, you can't take the survey, let's get another 700 people. Yeah, it's going to be different. You're going to look for trends in the survey
Well,
data.
and the more surveys you do, the people lose efficacy in the process, and they're like, I don't care because I keep taking the surveys and they don't know anything about it.
We still don't
And
have
that's what
anything
we hear as
happening.
feedback
Yeah.
when we're at events and they say, didn't we do a survey 3 years ago and nothing's happened yet?
Right.
I thought they were going to build a rec center way back when I answered all those survey questions.
Right.
I mean, I continue to hear that.
Right, me too.
And
So-
then, that was kind of the revival of it when we were like, oh, we might buy the rec center down the street. And they're like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it.
I wonder if one helpful data point might be, well, if we could present, what was the population in 2014 when the survey was done? What do we think the population is going to be in 2020 to, say, 2030, however long we want to consider, so that they can kind of get a sense of the growing demand? It feels to me like with Town Center and with whatever this development is called, the population
Yeah.
just keeps growing. So to me, that would lend more credibility to the case.
Right.
Well,
I think
I agree with you, but I think that's, we're trying to now predict what the town is gonna.
Population.
Well, right, because even if the population increases, we can't necessarily speak for what that population would demand. All we could say is, like, I would be more general. If we wanted to add something to this, I would be more general as, the one thing we know is that there are developments that are going to add to the population, and that will only create,
Potentially increase
potentially
demand.
increase the
Yeah.
demand for
Right.
services such as these.
Right.
I would argue that, like,
That's a
a great
data
example
point.
is the skate park right now, right? We're all talking about the skate park. In 5 years from now, is it gonna be as big of a topic in 5 years from now? Because this population of kids who are growing with scooters are gonna be 5 years older, they're gonna be driving cars. And what is the next group gonna be into? Is it gonna be scooters? Is it gonna be something else? So every time you do the snapshot, as the population moves on, things change.
Right, it just feels to me like it's kind of a watershed investment. It's like, let's just make the decision and stop the
So
fooling around.
at this point in time, with this recommendation, how do we move forward? Even if we said this is where everyone's behind this and we want to move forward, do we just take this to the board and at that point, it's still going to be a year before the ballot, and between now and then, if the board shows interest, we continue to develop, if we have to go through more survey questions, if we have to go through more budgetary issues, you know, I mean, it's a process for us to get a ballot initiative that tells exactly what we want and exactly what it's going to take. If you're going to raise the taxes by one mil or whatever it is, you know.
I guess I see this as, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we throw that back to the board now. Like, you guys asked us to make a recommendation. We've made a recommendation of what the board should do, and tell us what to do next.
Let us
Right.
know what else you need.
Well, what I would do is, if we make this recommendation, say tonight, I would pretty much right away turn around and request that we make a presentation to the board. Just like how the board has now asked us to make a presentation on the Pirate Park. I mean, that's a little thing compared to this. I would say this would almost certainly demand some time, FaceTime with the board on. So I would say, you know, PROSTAC has made this recommendation. We would like to present it to the board in a formal setting, and then that would basically put it in front of the public for public comment and the board for discussion. I mean,
But my point was-
Sandy, would you think that would be the appropriate step?
My comment would be, if it's just in your notes, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
That's the point I raised at the last trustees meeting when we had the information on the embankment slide, and I said, are we going to talk about this, or are we going to act on it? And the statement from the mayor was, this needs to be on an agenda, for not just coming in and talking on public comment or a recommendation. You really need to come in and present it.
Right.
And I think Trustee Ryan also said, if you guys have something you really want us to do, you got to come and talk to us about it in a board meeting where there's public comment, where we can actually publicly ask questions. So, yes, my comment would be, as you put your recommendation together and say, we want to come and talk to the board about this because we want to see it move forward.
And I guess my point I was trying to make earlier, I didn't say very clearly, I guess, is that we've had this on our plate for a long time, and we keep having this on our plate. You know, with this recommendation and the recommendation that we bring this as a board presentation in some future, once we were able to put it all together, we throw it now off our plate that we put our recommendation, and now it's up to the board to determine when we can get it on the agenda item.
And it's not only that, we get the process rolling with the board for communication, for input,
Right.
and then we can get it to a ballot measure, because that's really the end goal, is get it past us, the board, and on a ballot for the whole community to weigh in on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, you know, we made the recommendation, we present it to the board. They're going to have to answer if they want to move forward with it. And if they want to move forward with it, we then have the steps, basically, that Corey's outlining of how we get from today to a ballot question and everything in between, including, a budget item request for consultants to further this process next year. I mean, there's a whole string of events that will have to happen, but this is just the nudge to the board of, you need to give us a yes or a no. We've been talking about this, we've been going around in circles for years now.
Or even new direction. You know,
Well, right.
Even new direction, say, we really appreciate this, we want to see new data. Fine, now we have marching orders, we can get new data, but right now we're just kind of spinning our wheels, so I think this is the best we have to offer.
Right.
Will the board actually say no? I mean, will they just keep, because that to me feels, it does feel like, oh yeah, we can go get new data and that will happen, but also it feels like we're being strung along a little
Well, that's
bit.
the problem.
So I don't know, I'm the type of personality where like I'm much happier once a decision has been made, and I would much rather someone say, no, stop asking us. Personally, I mean, and I know that this would be like a beautiful thing, and I think that this would be a really important part of our community, but also, I mean, I'm this frustrated, and I've only been here a few months, so I can only imagine the frustration at this table, in this room, of trying to get this going to maybe a community that just isn't
to
backing
be
it.
perfectly honest, the until I hear that no,
Yeah, you're gonna keep trying.
I'm going to keep trying.
Okay.
So, and I think there's enough of us here that agree with that, but that's the problem. They haven't given us a yes, but they haven't given us a no. And so this is where we stand.
But honestly, with the whole Lakeshore thing,
That was a
we
big-
were pushing and we talked about it, and they
Distraction.
pursued the Lakeshore thing, and they have to make sure it's right for the town. And if the price isn't right, and the renovations, and it's outside, there's a lot
All
of
those
factors
things,
there that this seems to me the cleanest way to say, hey, this is everything we've been asking for, and even what you looked into. Is there a way we can make it happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, on the upside too is, and setting this forward, I agree with, is that we already have the playbook. From the concept that 3 years ago, they put together the playbook as far as how you get something on a ballot and how far ahead of the game. This thing has to be planned out this year to be on next year's ballot. And that, basically, the biggest thing it's going to concern is getting somebody to tell us how big it's going to be, how much it's going to cost, and how much the ballot initiative needs to be. But it's going to happen, and that's why we need to, I'm in agreement that we need to push this through, as far as getting because if they say, well, we need more data, then we know it's not going to, then we can come back to them and say, then it's not going to be on 2018, and we can tell them why, because I guarantee Patrick's got the presentation that
Shows the timeline.
Play, what was it,
Yeah.
Play? What was the company?
Green Play
gave, remember she gave us that great presentation about, okay, here's what you need to do in October, here's what you need to do in November,
Yeah.
here's what you need to do in December, and then as it goes into next year, you have to have the lawyers done by May, you have to have the ballot initiative written by June, and then at that point, I think you may even have to get signatures, some, if I remember correctly. There's a long process to putting it on a ballot. It just doesn't, we want to put it on the ballot this fall. And it can be expedited, but still, there is a process.
Well, right, I think Green Play even did have like an expedited, like if you
Yeah.
wanted to do it, like, I think we were maybe talking in the beginning of the year, so she kind of had a plan.
Yeah.
If you want to do it this year, here's like your expedited, but the ideal was like if you want to do it next year, here, it was the stretched out version.
But, because in
Gives
order,
more time.
and we all agreed that if we're going to do it, we need to plan this and we need to have a sales pitch. If we don't have a sales pitch, it's not going to pass.
Yeah.
They found that out 2002, 90, I can't remember, one year, it was on the ballot. It was an actual, it was a long time ago, and it got
Yeah.
voted down.
Yeah, it
So,
was
and if
like
we don't, that's the one thing we
2001.
already have always said, if we're going to do this, we got to do it right.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost money as far as the consultant's fees, just to put together a plan. This is what it's going to, because you have to be able to put, as I envision this going, we send this to them, they say, okay, let's go forward and try to get something on the ballot. What's the next step for us? Next step for us is going to be probably a fair amount of work.
Yeah.
Putting together, because we have to come up with you obviously hire the professionals to do it, but you have to put something out there so that you can say, well, if you approve, if you're willing to pay for this, you're going to get this.
Yeah. We got to get some
So-
momentum. Yeah.
Right.
Right, I mean, there's going to be a whole other round
So
of
all the more
public
reason to
engagement
confirm
Yeah.
that
and
this, we need to
everything,
put
so-
this through in some, whether it's this, however we want to do it, but we need to get as Sandy said.
Well, so I guess that would be the next.
We need to get it in front of their face and then
Yeah.
say, okay, what's the next step? We already know the next step, but this is the first step, so.
That would be the next question is, do we want to put forward the motion as I've written it? Do we want to make any changes to it?
I think other than just adding to say that we want to meet with them, like, as I don't know if that it can be communicated in a separate document or
That'll
if it
be
needs to be.
communicated separately.
Okay.
I think the last line covers that.
Yeah.
Undertake necessary tests, so it's a little long-winded, to be honest, but I think it covers everything. so.
Ground, so that's
Well, I just worry
It's a
that.
big rec center. It needs a lot
a
of.
lot of money, so that's gonna be the prime
It needs a
consideration.
page and a half.
So,
There's a
Peter,
lot of
are
money
you,
at stake.
by putting this out here, are you putting this as a recommendation, or?
Well, so, okay, I mean, yeah, if we don't really want to discuss any changes, then I will make a motion.
Well, I think we should start there. We should start with you. Before you motion it, is anybody on here, still on here, coming out to anyone that says that shouldn't be here?
Maybe we would
Anybody?
take out the November 2017 ballot, because clearly it's not going to be, so maybe just put in November 2018.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it said, should these initiatives be placed on the ballot in November 2017 or 2018?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
So we could take that.
Little things.
Yeah. Would it help to say that we, with this $20 million estimate, to say that if the board requests an updated estimate could be given on such and such date, kind of thing? Like, would that be helpful to say we could have that for you in August, or?
Maybe even just add the word promptly or something. Because
Yeah,
we
like.
don't want to get locked into a date we might not be able to make.
I mean, just to try to anticipate
Well, I guess,
whatever they're going to
I'm
throw
just
up at
wondering
us.
if the next.
I don't want to open the door for that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I just
I'm
feel like they're going to
wondering
do
if
it
the
anyway.
Statement I make following that, further public engagement, we anticipate the need to retain an architect and so on. If
Accurate
that,
estimate,
if
yeah.
that alone isn't saying
We'll
the
get you more
numbers need
info.
to be updated.
Yeah.
Or will need to be updated.
So I have a question on the second
Yeah,
page
see.
then. It goes into what it isn't. Do we want to include all of what it isn't, or just say what it is? On the bottom it says, we're including all these pieces. And on the next page, you're highlighting what we're not including.
Well, right. So this goes back to basically some discussions that this committee has had
Right.
before, with essentially saying there's already design concepts for civic space in town center, so as
Step on their
to
toes.
draw a line, a
Yeah.
clear line of what we envision going in town center and what we envision going in rec center. I tried to put that here. That said, any of this
Is
could
open.
go in all in one building.
Yeah.
It's true.
And that's really going to be direction from the board, as well as further public engagement to say, look, we don't see the need to maintain two facilities. It should all just be in one, or vice versa. The public or the board could say that it makes a lot of sense to divide certain amenities into two separate spaces. But if we wanted to say, oh, it's also going to have a library, it's also going to have teen space, all these other non-rec items, I mean, that's going to increase the cost of this facility. It's going to change a lot of what was written here.
I guess my sense of what you had here, Peter, was that you're acknowledging some of the discussions that have already taken place, questions they're going to ask and be thinking about. And this is a way of letting them know, we've thought about that too, and this is kind of what these are some of our assumptions for now.
Right. I mean, Ron's saying it's long-winded. I'm not disagreeing.
I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying.
Well, no, I'm not disagreeing with that, but the reason why it's long-winded is I tried to put as much information that I could think that the board will ask
We'll ask it, yeah.
in a recommendation. It's kind of a summary to date
Yep.
of what this committee has done, what the town has done in the process in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts that came to my mind is, first of all, this is not a $300,000 thing.
Nope.
So you need the extra details in it. I mean, a page and a half or something that's $20 to $24 million is not excessive, in my opinion. I do also agree that we said we didn't include this because we had these conversations already. So let's just close the loop on that right away. I agree with putting this extra stuff in here. And to what you were saying about, we could do these things and give you more estimates. I guess I equate that is to, you try to make a strong statement by this, but then you back off and say, if you really, it's like telling somebody, hey, I'm telling your kids, you got to wash the dishes if you want to. You gotta
Yeah,
do
but
the
they
same-
have all the power. It's as if your children had all the power. we have zero power.
but I
I'm
think
just
the
saying to
message-
anticipate the question and the needs.
I
I'm
think
not saying to water
no,
it
I know,
down.
but I think, at least my personal recommendation is that, no, we want you guys to decide on this. Let's, in the way it's worded right now, I kind of get that's, that statement. It's like, this is what we were saying right now. If you want us to bring you another rock, tell us to bring you another rock, but right now, this is what we're saying based on what we have today.
So if we put this forth, this is just going to the board, and then at that point, we will provide a presentation?
Yeah.
When they put us on the agenda?
We'll
I mean,
ask
that's
to-
basically what this is saying.
We'll ask to be put on the agenda to discuss it.
Jacques' been so quiet.
I've been listening, so.
You have. That's good.
I agree generally with this recommendation. I think it's good to include what it will be, what it won't be, the estimate, and basically putting out the offer to proceed if the board agrees. So that's my opinion of it.
Okay. So.
Let's do it.
I will make a motion that we proceed with the recommendation as written, removing the mention of November 2017 ballot.
So optimistic.
Second.
Corbett seconds. Discussion.
Any more discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
So it passes unanimously.
They don't do a
I'm not going to
special-
read this in. Allison, do you have it right? The file.
I did. I printed it out for
Okay.
everybody.
I'm not.
She did.
I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing. So
We've read it. We totally
it'll
read
be
it.
it'll be in the minutes as written.
All right.
So. Okay, so before we get to the updates, I just want to go back to the resident who spoke in public comment regarding Hodgkin Harris. She actually stopped short of what I thought her actual purpose of being here tonight was. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Hodgkin Harris, it's owned by the county. The town of Superior contributed funds to, rebuild that dam to basically have what the reservoir looks like today. Because if anyone remembers what it looked like, 5 years ago, it wasn't holding water basically, and so we don't have actual access to the reservoir because this county, they're not allowing us any access to it. Next to, just to the kind of northwest of the reservoir, is the vacant piece of land that we refer to as this Zaharias property. The board has seen, 3 or 4 iterations of a development proposal, and they're going to be on Monday night seeing the latest one from a developer that wants to build, I guess now they're just straight calling it apartments, right? There's no commercial in there, it's only apartment dwellings. Basically a development similar to Saddlebrook, which is the town-owned development that's just to the south of the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
So this resident, along with these others that I guess have been studying the wildlife there, are looking to start a petition that the town buy the Zaharias property as open space. They went to the OSAC meeting last week, and OSAC actually made a recommendation to the board saying such, that it be purchased as open space rather than be developed. And so I thought that Kathy was going to ask PROSTAC to basically make a recommendation as well. It's not on the agenda. We can discuss it if we want. But the one thing I will say is, with all this back and forth between OSAC and PROSTAC of overlapping duties and who's really responsible for what, one thing I will say that in my mind has always been clear is OSAC's purpose is to make recommendations to the board on open space acquisition. PROSTAC really isn't asked to make recommendations, at least in my 5 years here, isn't asked to make recommendations on open space acquisition. The one exception being the OSAC and PROSTAC are always asked to make the joint recommendation to the county on what open space we would like the county to acquire. But as far as like for instance, when OSAC went through the process with the board to purchase Shan property, 2 years ago or something, that never came across PROSTAC desk. I mean, we didn't talk about it at all. We weren't asked to talk about it. So I don't know if it's really our place, and we can discuss this.
But it's always been on our list. That list that we put together every year.
For the county,
For the county,
yes.
right. Because there's no way, the price tag on that land is huge.
Well, so that's the problem.
about the
And
price of
that's the problem I
Maybe
see is
more.
is
Yeah.
the priority list for acquisition. Level 3 has always been number 1. I'm not sure where Zaharias has fallen, but it's probably always in the top 3. But if the town were to buy Zaharias at the astronomical price that they're asking, basically, you would be paying full market value because the other option is going to be bought by a private developer. It's not like the seller has no other option but to sell to the town. We would basically spend all of open space fund buying Zaharias, and then the top priority being level 3 would have no fund left to purchase if it ever became an option. I would see it as it would be like this last minute shuffle of priorities. It would be like this hasty move, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
I was going to say, the only comment I have is that it seems like if it's developed and developed properly, you actually get more recreation and open space opportunities than you do if you leave it as open space. Because right now, you can't get out to the reservoir, you can't get on a trail next to it, where if the developer, from the plans I've seen, not saying it's the latest one, but there was opportunities for parks and green space and trails along the reservoir to give you a little bit more interaction.
Yeah, if you look at the newest plan in the packet for Monday, the town would be, given basically, I think it's like 7 acres of dedicated open space / park space, and the majority of that is running on the border between the development and the reservoir. There's a little bit on the kind of north end of wetland. I guess there's some wetland up around that, like basically right off the edge of the highway, I think. So between the wetland area, and they would build, the developer would build at their cost, basically a viewing area trail overlooking the reservoir. So in that sense, it's like the highest value that Zaharias, in my mind, offers is viewing of the reservoir. Well, that's not lost by developing the rest of the property, because they're dedicating a strip of land with a trail for that purpose.
My immediate thought on it was, let's see what they bring first before we even talk about it.
Right.
There's no reason to do any kind of recommendation to speak, especially from our seat as the
Yeah.
PROSTAC side, just to say, now, after they go to the board, and the board may come back to us and say, what are you guys' thoughts on this? Then we
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think I'm curious to see what they do. But so far, based upon what I've seen with the board, they're going to have to come up with something pretty dramatically different to get
So-
you guys to pass it. So.
Let me take the opposite question, and I'm not recommending this at this time, but given what Peter was saying, if they're making the recommendation to buy that as open space, and we're kind of all in agreement that, we're not making a recommendation to buy it as open space, are we considering making a recommendation to not purchase that as open space.
I think we stay out of it.
I'm just
I mean,
making
why?
I mean, so the one thing I would say is, I mean, we could as a committee do that, but again, I just don't think in either sense, saying yes or no, it's really our place. I mean, unless the board does actually ask our opinion, it historically has not been PROSTAC's place to get involved in open space acquisition. Once it's acquired, then we'll talk about trails and some other things. But as far as acquisition, it hasn't really been our domain. I mean, I was going to write a letter myself to the board as me as a resident, not as, nothing to do with the committee, on my thoughts on the development and what I know of, you know, the request of some residents. But I don't know that that really requires it.
And I agree with you guys. I just wanted to make sure we had that discussion.
Yes.
One question I do have, and I've always had, and it's probably a good time to bring it up, is, you know, in our acronym, is "and" in the right place?
Why?
I mean, should it really be Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Trails?
It's advisory committee.
No, but
Wait.
no, I'm saying the "and."
No,
So
no.
Parks,
Because
Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Trails.
The distinction of, see, this is.
Oh.
You can read it differently. It's Open Space and Trails or Open Space Trails.
No, because trails, the majority of trails in town actually aren't in open space.
Yeah.
Or at least not in natural open space.
Well, right.
They're in, you know, they're in.
And just leave out the
Development.
and.
Yeah, well, and doesn't get an accurate.
Yeah,
doesn't
and
get a-
isn't included, that's the thing. Just ignore the and.
So I
We
would
reviewed
say-
it, it's okay.
That's it. Continuing on.
I would say it's in the right
I'm
place.
so glad we
Cleared it.
cleared it up.
It's better than order.
Open space or trails. Who makes the distinction of which one we get to comment on? All right, so let's move to updates and look ahead. Allison, do you have prepared stuff on this?
I do not.
Okay, because, so track H open space, the construction update, I believe the update is, the board has approved the final development plan. It includes the trail. They've already started to stake out the lot,
Speaking of fast track.
and that's, I believe that's the update. If Patrick had something else in mind, I'm not sure.
Will it be a straight trail or meandering?
Oh, yeah.
I have to go back. Sandy, do you remember how it was finally approved?
Could also be a highway, who knows?
Quite a few,
We don't
quite a
know.
few trees.
It's not a soccer
It's
Oh, there was a long discussion about the trees, I remember that.
Yeah, we had many talks.
Well, and
I
they
love it.
ended up adding a lot more than I think either OSAC or PROSTAC recommended. So Pirate Park embankment slide, you know, we've already mentioned this. The board is going to hear a presentation on August 14th. And then Corbett, if you want to update us on the community bike rides.
Yeah, so last weekend we held the community service on Saturday for the BMX park trail maintenance, and Sunday for the workshop, the BMX workshop. I'm not going to say that either was a resounding success. I think we were delayed in really getting the word out, and I know a lot of folks, first of all, we pushed it off to Father's Day weekend to deconflict it with, what was that thing, singing, or party in the park, or whatever the hell they were calling it.
Was party in the park.
Parties
yeah.
in the park.
Right,
Yeah.
and so they wanted to deconflict, so we pushed it off, and we knew it was Father's Day weekend, but the purpose of this was to try to get people to get involved in the BMX park during the summer, and if we keep pushing it off, then we're running out of summer, so we decided to hold it on Father's Day weekend. Really, I don't think the word really got out until last week, and even then, I subscribe to a lot of things, and I didn't see it. And I finally saw it late, and we tried to get it on Facebook and do a lot of things. So the trail maintenance ended up being my wife and I.
Oh.
And it's funny, even my kids didn't show up because one of them was sick and the other one was doing, was invited somewhere else. So it's like, and everybody else left last minute. I had a whole host of people come in, and all of them were like leaving last minute. So You know, I calculated it out that it was like 0.0016 percentage of the population of Superior showed up. But in reality, we got a lot of maintenance done. I'm actually surprised we got a lot of maintenance done. The next day was actually a better success, and I got a lot more people out there. We had 6 kids, and at one point we actually even had 10 kids too. 4 kids just happened by and jumped part of it. When we were able to continue the trail maintenance as part of the BMX workshop, teaching the kids what to do and how to sweep the trails off and clean it up and show it. So I actually got even more trail maintenance done, and that was a lot better the next day. So did it accomplish its goal? Not 100%, but actually it did better on the second day than I thought it was. So this weekend is supposed to be where we're going to encourage people to get to the 36 Bikeway. I haven't really got with Patrick this week. I've been super busy at work, and I'm going to just recommend that we, in lieu of what happened last week, trying to get the word off, we push it off to a TBD weekend. And part of that is some of the feedback that I've been getting from some neighbors when I was talking this idea. You know, we were trying to promote the 36 Bikeway, this Superior part, you know, and say how do you get there, access, and how it can take you to different areas. And Velostop was going to lead us on a ride over to Louisville and get some ice cream downtown. And everybody was like, well, so you got to pay for the ice cream? All right. No, they're not paying. So let's rethink this idea.
Wow.
So I need to get with Patrick, and we'll probably push it off to a TBD weekend and figure out. But that one's a lot easier because you're not asking the public for community involvement. Then the next big one is, I think, planned for second or third week of July. I got to look, and that's doing the same thing we did last weekend, but doing it with Coyote Ridge. And I've already talked to Kevin Collin about what we can do of trying to get better public outreach, so that we can get more people involved in this. We try to have more folks attend the volunteer trail maintenance. And
Well, maybe if we push the 36 Bikeway one into July and push the Coyote Ridge into August.
we do that. I mean, part of the reason we were trying to do this is it's now started getting hot too, and we're trying to keep it at night. But kids are off from school. This is a good time for them to start discovering these areas. We could do it into August, but mid-August they're going back to school, and now they have a lot more time. That was the whole premise in the beginning, but I'm willing to push some of this stuff off.
Okay.
Do they sell? Did Velostop sell?
Sell
Did he sell? Did the Velostop owner sell to the manager?
Yes, yeah. Sonny is the co-owner with Tim. I can't remember Tim's last name.
Okay.
He officially took.
Because I saw there was a grand reopening, and I'm like, okay.
Right. So he officially took ownership of it like maybe a month ago. Him and Tim. So Sonny, I was actually talking to him about his story, and he started working there about a year ago. Within a few months, he became the manager, and a few months after that, he became co-owner. So really good story. Really good guy. They actually, they charged for service on bikes, but he went ahead and, as part of the workshop, he brought tools out in case kids needed some slight maintenance on the bike that they were willing to do, and really, trying to do a lot of the community involvement. So.
Okay. Thanks. So we already said the board review of Saharius is this coming Monday, the 26th. So, I would just say if anyone has any comments, just make them to the board as a resident. Just make you can email your public comments if you can't make it to the meeting. So, 4th of July booth, we'll focus this on the skate park engagement. So we'll at least have the surveys and some of the diagrams that we had to kind of show people that maybe initiate some discussion. But I also, this survey, if everyone didn't see it, it's in the pile of papers there, is up on a SurveyMonkey right now too, which I had sent to the CAC, listed on some of the Facebook pages. So if anyone knows, it sounds like, Corey and Corbett in particular have
I know, I think hold on, let me
their
count 'em.
sons know a bunch of
Well, I mean, is it helpful to
kids.
share that kind of stuff on Facebook and just be like, hey, you know.
That's what I would
yeah,
say.
I mean, like,
share
can
it
we
with
just,
anyone you can
Yeah.
to
It's our
try
kids'
to
class.
get feedback, because the survey in particular, the more people who actually use the park and can comment on the features, that's the
That's what
really
we need.
useful information. I mean, the more general question of should we do it or
Yeah.
or should we not do it, like that resident feedback. I mean, we certainly welcome that feedback, but that's not really what this survey is intended for. The survey is really meant for actual design elements of the park. We'll kind of deal with the bigger question as when we kind of go through this whole process of, do we get enough feedback that says like, just no, we don't want it done. We'll kind of keep that as an aside.
Is
So
it the kind of thing where we could actually, could we go into a school or like an after-school program? Or, I mean, because like clearly there's an age demographic that seemed to really use the park. I mean, is that the kind of thing where?
If it were the time of year, I would say yes.
Well, I just mean,
That's
well,
the problem.
well, but I mean, if this is a first step and, they're coming back in August, is that a doable thing just to get more information as we go along? Like, let's say the board is behind it for next year as a way to just collect more information.
Right, so I think if the board approves it for next year, we'll do more public engagement, then we'll be in the kind of time frame of school being
Okay.
back. So
Cool.
that's something we could try to do, talk to the principal of the schools and say, is there some way you can get this out that we're doing a public meeting or whatever?
Yeah.
That's always been a little bit of a hit and miss in the past when we've tried to do those things. Even like when we did one of the early Wildflower Park meetings at the school, the principal did actually show up, but I don't know if the school actually helped us promote it.
Mm.
And it was the property next to the school, and the meeting was at the school. I don't know if they even helped us. So. All right.
July
Keith?
4th, are we having one booth or two?
I don't know.
Sharing
We're
again?
sharing with OSAC.
And how many people here are going?
I can go.
I'll be there probably right at 9. So, yeah, anyone that can attend for any portion of time. That'll be
Did Patrick
interesting.
get
If we're
it?
sharing with OSAC, we're not talking about anything that has to do with open
Well,
space. So.
If you're sharing with OSAC, is recycling also there?
RPAC is sharing with CAPS, and I think historical has their own, because of the fire truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Are
need
they
a
going to
fire
have a fire
truck.
truck down there?
We need
They usually have it.
we need a big vehicle mascot.
I don't think they've
The
usually.
flag.
I mean, they've had it in the parade, I think.
Giant
one year.
ski
They usually stop it there and raise the flag, and then the kids crawl in and out of it for a while.
I guess I wasn't there last year.
Trust me. That's a yearly thing.
Sounds awesome.
Do we have anything planned, Peter, or are we just showing up with the skateboards?
We'll just show up with the skate park stuff. I know that Patrick was trying to order like a, kind of a swag item for PROSTAC, but I don't know if he ever, Allison, do you know? Did he ever get those? He was going to try to order bandanas.
Oh, I
Like
think there
with
was
the-
something in the works.
With like the trail map printed on them or something. But I don't know if he actually got
And
them.
he was gonna have a large print of the trail map, but I know OSAC also has a large print with just the open space highlighted. Or the potential.
I think that they want the 5-year trails plan is what they usually do, and then some of the open space acquisition targets.
Right. So, I mean, if we're sharing a booth, they usually show up with that one. So I was just double checking.
We did ask Patrick for a trail map.
Yeah, and he was gonna get it, I just don't know if he did or not.
We were
And
looking
then
at
a
two, we were
trail
looking
map
at
with
two
existing
options.
trails, or
No,
a trail map
no, proposed.
Proposed.
And we were looking,
On the 5 years trails.
But that, in the,
Well,
the funny thing
essentially.
is that was before we were really gonna have the skate park you talked about, so we're trying to figure out what to talk about, so we asked.
Right, I mean, it's just one of those, the map is always good, because it just allows
Starts
people to point
conversation,
and
yeah.
talk about certain areas within the town.
we had discussed after the
It was a couple months.
September one,
Yeah.
that with Chili Fest, we should have some kind of a handout with the proposed trails. Because that's what people are really, when they start talking about trails, you can say, oh yeah, well, this might be one right here. Well, our little map says this is where one we're hoping to get. We're
And
trying to
that's-
generate more interest for it.
And that's that,
So,
what is that program with the, you find the letters?
Yeah.
The little book.
Passport.
Passport.
There you go. I couldn't remember the name, but it has a little map that,
Yeah, we'll have those to stamp, and usually OSAC stamps those, but they'll be at the same booth, so
Right.
anybody that's helping.
right.
post that.
Well, right, that would be good to know, because there, what was it, 2 years ago, someone showed up with a passport, and we're like, we have no idea what that is. And apparently, we were supposed to stamp it.
Well,
do you know how many from OSAC are showing up? Do they have a list? No.
There's always a couple that
Right,
show.
it's usually.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Meeting adjourned.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Record time.
Record time and lively.
You see, my kids left me to go watch the Rapids. I'm like, really? Come on.
The other day, I had 6 scooters in the back of my car going over the skate park.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, Ian Dunham came and presented, and then Matthew, and, yeah, I'm like, I was asking Ian, he was reading everything on the phone. He had it all written out.
No, instead of presenting, my kids were at the skate park.
Oh, yeah. And mine are like, I'm gonna go to the soccer game. I said, I'll go, make sure I represent you.
Isn't it pretty? Just like yours, except no bee. That's really cool.
I sent the pictures.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, and it's some blog. I can't follow it. I can only follow someone.
Sandy Pennington said we should put this picture on the website because.
What's that, CAC?
Because of the bee. She said, you know, the picture is
No,
one
the
thing, but
CAC,
after
remember,
the bee.
and Kenny emailed me, he's like, you know, I was asking him about where they posted at, whether that'd be next, he said,
And I can't figure out what he's carrying, that's the,
because he said I could
you
put
know, is
that
he
on
like carrying
the cat.
food or?
Well, it's been, so when it sounds since after email, blast, it goes out, right? Because he said I could put this on the cat. And he asked me to do that, and I said, so cute.
So anyone that's on the list,
Damn
send
airplane
a message to the list.
That's all, well, it looks, I mean,
So if you're
very
not,
similar
That's a
with
great
you
that.
can sign up on
Yeah.
the town website. It's been years since I did it. So if you're not on it, and you can't figure out how to get
I
on
haven't
it.
slept today, so just because it's so hot.
Oh,
I've been
Yeah,
upset
it's
too. Yep.
That's what it looked like.
I know, I was like, I wonder if
I mean, they were running.
Yeah. Well, that's cute. Turn it on the air conditioner because it's so dang expensive to run it.
That's true. My
And it
bedroom's-
doesn't really do the job.
My bedroom's in the front upstairs, so it gets that sun, you know.
Yeah. Well, that was a really short one. How pleasant. I'm happy to go away.
There's skate park printouts. Do you want me to just take those for the
Absolutely.
4th of July?
Did you have to reprint?
One last thing you need to like forward on.
Good night, thank you.
It's still light outside.
Nice to see you.
Ditch that recommendation.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys printed them out, I was just kind of winging it there. And then I was like, you know, if kids come, there'll be much less